Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, their partner Tech Valley, and our titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Elite Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, and Interwood. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving on to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answers. So, what if ChatGPT wrote it? Is our next session, and the moderator is Mr. Nasser Kasuri. Mr. Nasser Kasuri is the CEO of a number of companies under the Beaconhouse Group umbrella. This includes Beaconhouse International College, which provides UK-based undergraduate and postgraduate programs in Pakistan. He also heads Beacon Energy Limited, a provider of high-quality solar PV solutions, as well as Homebridge, Beaconhouse's first foray into fully online education. He sits on the board of Knowledge Platform, a company focused on leveraging AI and machine learning to bring quality learning to students in Pakistan, and is also the chairman of the board of Teach for Pakistan, an organization that places internees in 2-year teaching fellowships in government schools. He has done his BSc Social Sciences from the Lahore University of Management Sciences and Executive MBA from the London School of Economics, triumphed in conjunction with HSE Paris and NYU Stern. So let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Nasser Kasuri on stage.
Please bear with me while I try to get this piece of technology working. There we go. My apologies. I'm very sorry, actually. My session notes are on this, and there we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 16th edition of SOT events. Again, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. And welcome to this panel, where we ask, so what if ChatGPT wrote it? As generative AI models like ChatGPT become increasingly sophisticated, the lines between human-generated content and AI-generated content begin to blur. This presents an array of opportunities from automating mundane tasks to personalizing user experiences. However, it is not without its problems. The power of AI to generate content brings with it concerns about authenticity, misinformation, and shifting ethical boundaries. This session aims to unpack the capabilities of generative AI, delve into its practical applications, and critically examine the broader implications for our society. Our participants will explore the transformative potential of these technologies while also contemplating the responsibilities and obstacles that accompany such advancements. So we have a group of distinguished panelists with us today, who I shall introduce. So Dr. Tariq Banouri is a recipient of the Sitara Imtiaz and is a professor of economics at the University of Utah and has served as the chairman of Pakistan's Higher Education Commission. He has a PhD from Harvard University and has worked with the UN Division for Sustainable Development. His expertise encompasses sustainable development, governance, and the philosophy of knowledge. Mr. Jazeb Zahir is CEO of Tingtash, a software services firm developing products for global clients like Sesame Workshop and BBC. He is an adjunct professor at LUMS, focusing on teaching entrepreneurship, innovation in education and AI, and has vast experience in training executives on AI both in Pakistan and Silicon Valley. Ms. Melissa McBride is the co-founder and CEO of Sophia Technologies and Sophia High School, a pioneering online education ecosystem. A pioneering online education ecosystem. Melissa leads Disrupt Ed, a movement focusing on innovative, equitable, and sustainable education. With over 20 years of teaching and leadership experience, her vision in shaping the future of education through disruptive technologies makes her one of the foremost experts in the area. Um, Mr. Florian Ciprian is a senior IB World Schools manager based at Global IB Center in Singapore. He engages with schools and school systems to provide partnership guidance and support so that they can achieve their optimum teaching, learning, and assessment objectives. He is focused on advocating for school priorities while promoting increased depth and breadth of program development and also serving as a catalyst for learning community success through IB evaluation. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Um, and welcome, of course, to our audience. I hope you find this session engaging. I certainly am looking forward to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think to begin the session, let's really ask the question. So, what if ChatGPT wrote it? You know, with AI being as powerful as it is, what is the harm in letting it do the bulk of our work for us? And should educational institutions spend time and resources trying to govern how it's used? So we can start from Dr. Banuri on the left and go in sequence, I suppose. Dr. Banuri, and if we can try to make the opening statements about 2 minutes each, so that we have time for the rest of the conversation, that would be great. Dr. Banuri, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Nasir Saab, for inviting me. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a huge hype around ChatGPT and about the breakthrough of generative AI. The point that strikes me is that there are very strong parallels in our history when we made some kind of a major technological breakthrough. One example that I would like to remind you of is the scientific management approach roughly 100 odd years ago, and the emergence of the assembly line. The idea there was that, whenever you produce something, it is a craftsman who used to produce it. And at some point, people figured out that, well, the craftsman does a number of tasks, and you can break down those tasks into small components, and a machine can do them. And lo and behold, machines started doing it, and they became cheaper, and they became much more affordable, and the human content shifted to something else. Now, the same thing that happened 100 years ago, in which you had cars being produced by craftsmen sitting together and trying to shape and put it together, all of a sudden you took all of that away, put it on a machine, and the craftsmen were removed, and just humans were doing, just screwing in something or putting one plate on top of the other, total mechanical rote work. And the result, of course, was that it produced a tremendous increase in productivity. What it did was that it pushed us humans away from doing the routine work into doing something which was more creative. Now, we have the analog of that today, that when we do intellectual work in terms of writing, in terms of creating art, there's a lot of routinized operations there. And then there's real creativity. And what it has enabled us to do is to break it apart. That the routine work can now be left to a machine, whereas we are left to do a creative work. And Nasir Saab, I'll just conclude with one example. The great artist Picasso was once asked if that was it true that he could just with a pencil produce a perfect circle. And he took up a pencil and a canvas, and he drew a perfect circle, absolutely, circular. And when he reached the end of that circle, he put in a little squiggle. And somebody asked him, "Why did you put in that squiggle?" And he said, "If it was a perfect circle, that would be just geometry, meaning that would just be a machine. The squiggle is mine." Now, interestingly, you see, this is something that we need to learn to understand, that routinized work is not creative. The creative part of it is how we can harness the routinized work and give our own imprimatur on it. I think what ChatGPT and all of these things mean is that all of us are unique and all of us are artists. It enables us to become artists. And this is the breakthrough that we should look for.
Thank you, Florian.
Thank you for that segue in creativity. For us at the International Baccalaureate, it was clear that these AI tools will become part of our everyday life. So we need to readily adapt our programs, our assessment, and our practices so students can understand how to use them ethically and effectively. I think the more opportunities we give to young people to understand what a tool is and how it can be used and how it can be used ethically, the better opportunities for creativity. So to that end, we had to reflect on what is important for an IB education. We work with 5,000 schools in 160 countries globally, and we represent the voices of those people. We create the programs, the reflections, the assessment, and the value of an IB education through the voices of their communities, including your community of IB education in Pakistan. So it was time for us to think about how assessment reflects what we value in education. What are we assessing? Are we assessing production of text or value of ideas? And we still have to make changes to adapt to these developments in AI. We believe in having assessment tools that are more than just examinations, and then important that students understand what is the ethical use of an artificial intelligence. And really, to be honest, and I'm going to keep it very short and kind of answer the question through another question that breaks down this understanding of so what if now what. If a student understands everything they have submitted, they can discuss and explain it. If they have been ethical and transparent in how they have used the ideas of others, and we are assessing those areas of their thinking that cannot be covered by artificial intelligence, does it really matter if someone else or something else wrote that? What is the purpose of our evaluation and assessments, and what do we value in education? Those are some thoughts I want us to kind of build on.
Fair enough. Please.
Thank you. The stance I'm going to take from my background in both industry and teaching is that the truth is the quality of the output, or actually, let me put it this way. ChatGPT represents an amazing technical breakthrough. At the back end, to me, it's personally very beautiful that our language has so much mathematical logic behind it that we can break it down into equations and predictions. To me, that's very beautiful. That's a beautiful thing about language. So at the back end, it's a big technical breakthrough. But on the front end, I actually think ChatGPT is not really giving you the quality of answers a lot of people seem to think. If you have even somewhat specialized knowledge in a field and you try to learn more about it from ChatGPT, you'll quickly realize it's giving you very, very generic information on the topic. It is not a very big jump from just doing a Google search on a topic. The important difference is that it's not just copy and pasting static stuff from the internet. It's actually composing answers based on using probability and predictions based on what it thinks we want to hear. But it can rarely go into depth. It can rarely give you specialized answers. So I'm going to make the point that 3 months ago, it was really cool to see that ChatGPT was able to compose answers. But the truth is, everyone who's using it has already kind of realized it's reasonable when you have no information and just want a starting point, but it cannot give you even the quality of answers you need in a school environment, in your work. It cannot give you depth. It cannot give you nuance. So basically, it's just really a co pilot, and it doesn't have the potential to be more than that until we start looking at tuned, specialized, and optimized tools that can be built upon that. Those have a lot of potential for specific applications, but those are also a lot of effort to develop. Remember, this base model itself took what, more than 5 years and billions of dollars to develop. So the stance I'm going to take is there's no problem if ChatGPT wrote it. Everybody knows that the answer ChatGPT gave you is quite mediocre. It cannot be used in the context that most people are thinking. I feel like at the school level, we need to make students aware of its presence. We can give them very high level guidance on how you prompt it and how you take advantage of it. But let students tinker with it. Don't make them think that this is an important skill to develop in school. It's a skill to develop on the side like a hobby to make the most out of it. But it's a very, very limited tool at the moment for limited tasks. The genius is in using it to supplement the other way you do your work. And that's how I see it evolving in the near future.
Well said. Actually, I quite agree with that. I always tell people that the answers are incredibly generic and lack creativity. So if you're going to use it to do everything, you're not really going to come up with anything original or interesting. Good point. But it is a great tool. Melissa, so what if ChatGPT wrote it? Please share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody from London. Good afternoon to you. It's fantastic to be here. So one thing I've noticed, actually, before I get to the heart of that question is you have some incredible young people sitting in the audience today. If you are under 18 in the audience, can you just wave and make yourself seen to everybody else? And hopefully they're doing that. And I think the reason why
I think everyone is raising their hands right now.
Good, excellent. We won't tell anybody. I think it's so important that we recognize one key fact is that what is happening will have an impact on our lives, but it is going to transform the lives that young people under 18 face as we look to 2030, 2050, 2070, and beyond. And my experience, both as an educator but as a mom of four, is young people more than ever in history are just built differently, and they have the most immense capacities to create. And I think that is what is most important when we talk about who cares about ChatGPT and if it wrote it. I think they're going to use it anyways. They know about it. And Florian, to your point, I think it's absolutely fundamental when we as the policymakers and we as the leaders within our various sectors are thinking about its impact. We remember about safe, effective, and ethical use of AI. Because if we can instill this in young people, if we can inspire them to look beyond the ability that they've been using already for years on Google and Wikipedia to find and search for information, is actually how do we move up Bloom's taxonomy? How do we move beyond knowledge? How do we move to creation? And I think that is really where I see the power of ChatGPT and how it can unlock education for the over 222 million kids around the world who are not currently in school.
Fantastic. That's a great response, Melissa. And I think let's see what Nadia has to say about this. Our venerable AI bot, who I hope will work better than she did at the initial session. But here we go. Nadia, what is the danger of letting ChatGPT and artificial intelligence do all the work that human beings have historically had to do? Did you actually hear that?
As an AI avatar panelist, I believe that while AI and automation can enhance efficiency and productivity, human involvement remains crucial. It's important to strike a balance, leveraging technology while preserving human skills, creativity, and empathy. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I think that's pretty good. I think that's what the panel was saying, right? So, well done, Nadia. Okay, fantastic. So, Melissa spoke a little bit about, how AI can be used by young people to really do incredible and amazing things and express their ideas. And I thought perhaps we can everyone can speak to us about how the industries that you're associated with or that you're passionate about have been potentially have already been transformed by AI or are going to be transformed by AI, and how it's really letting maybe young entrepreneurs scale their ideas more effectively. So, Melissa, we can perhaps start with you, and then we will ask the other panelists to chip in as well.
Super. So I'm really lucky to be sort of a maverick in a field and build a maverick school that is probably as innovative, because we are a school in the cloud. And the kids at Sophia High School who are between 4 and 16, they've been using AI for 18 months. It began with understanding about some of the tools that already existed. It moved quickly to actually prompt engineering. How do we create prompts? The kids have their own prompt library. But now what we're doing is we're seeing a lot more creation with code, creation within immersive settings, building their own Nadias. And it's just such an immense tool to provide another layer of support when our children in schools need that so badly. We know that we have a global teacher crisis, and that's before we begin to look at areas that are unfortunately suffering from conflict and from crisis, and we have displacement of children. And I think the way that we've approached it is, how can we leverage AI as an assistant to our educators to streamline, that workflow that they have to handle on a day-to-day basis? How can we use AI effectively to enable them to create individualized learning pathways for students at scale? How can we get rid of some of the autonomous work, again, that's necessary, but actually AI is well placed to do that. And any minute we back to our teachers, they're able to put that back into working in sessions with our students and building those relationships and providing that facilitation and support. But actually, as you rightly said, the real kind of inspiration I get is when I see young people and their vision and their innovation and their ability to create on it, not to cheat and not to speed up, I have to submit a piece of homework, but actually to go beyond, to take AI where their original learning may have stopped, and how to then transform that and push it forward and create and go beyond. And I think that's really what we see for our use of AI is it is a sage guide. We use it when it helps children in the learning process to push them beyond, to support them, and we put it away when it doesn't.
Fantastic. And Jazeb, your perspective.
Sure. So my impression is that ChatGPT in particular and similar tools are already extensively being used in all industries. Even when I talk to friends at companies like McKinsey, Google, they honestly tell me that when they feel stuck, they frequently use ChatGPT to get an initial taste for a topic. They don't use it as their final answer for anything because it's not of that quality. But whenever they're feeling stuck on the many new topics they have to learn in a day, they see ChatGPT as a little more user-friendly than just a Google search in getting some form of coherent answer. So I feel like pretty much every industry is using ChatGPT in some form. I feel like industries that are heavy on content, like copywriting, marketing material, are using it pretty extensively because a lot of their work is actually quite labor-intensive, and they're using ChatGPT to prepare more variations of their content than they could do with humans in shorter time. But from my vantage point as someone working in the software industry, I can tell you the most promising areas of AI are very specific ones. One example, you probably don't realize how labor-intensive game design is. In game design, we have to make a lot of art. Every single art frame needs to be made. We have a lot of tools in industry that quicken the process, but we still have armies and armies of illustrators, renderers who are making those hundreds of frames, those thousands of sprites, those animations. So AI tools have already come up that are simplifying these things. At the most basic level, you have AI tools that you write a prompt, make me a sprite for a character in an RPG game. The more specific you make it, the more options it gives you. So AI is taking out, so it's not taking out the creative process. We're still telling it what to make. We're still taking it and tweaking it and integrating it, but it's removing that kind of labor-intensive process in between. And in my mind, the most promising areas of AI are where we will use it to figure out where are we spending a lot of time and money and losing value, and where can we kind of get AI to do that and to do the labor intensive stuff while we focus on the more value added stuff.
Fantastic. Florian.
Absolutely, this idea of efficiency, what are we spending our time on, and what are we having students do in classrooms, in exams, and in their interactions in their learning communities, it really presented to us that the idea is an opportunity and not a fear. It reminded us, I think, it reminded us of what we value in education, and we already do that, but I think it solidified this idea of how can we make more critical thinking, more recognizing of bias, more skills-based approaches, project-based, connected learning with the immediate environment important in young people's lives. And we need to ensure as educators, and you work in schools, many of you, that we have evaluation tests that require students to do more than just gathering facts and opinions. We already do that a lot through our programs. We also need to think about how to redefine what's important to us, what communication skills now look like across language and culture, and how can we use AI in the day-to-day interactions. This, of course, will change education. We need to teach students about prompt engineering, use less time on writing and more time on thinking, emphasize the dangers of bias being built into the AI models and the issues of inclusivity that we're going to discuss in this panel today. And let's just think about this one aspect. AI learns from a body of work. So far, a body of work created by the human experience on this planet that's on the internet. But what happens if that body of work is biased or incomplete? What happens when we move on to generations of knowledge created by AI and new realities created through that synthesizing of information? Why AI produces wrong information? And how is this transferable to what we teach students in the classrooms? So there has to be a paradigm shift, I think, in education overall, in terms of using our time efficiently and effectively with students and understanding what we really value and how can we best use our time that's really valuable in our educational programs.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dr. Banuri, from your, you've kind of had a macro view on the policy side as well at the HEC. You have a lot of experience. Can you tell us in your various capacities, have you witnessed any AI disruption in the various sectors that you've been involved with?
Nasir Sahab, let me take this question forward a little bit. Let me just say a few things, and they bring in a little bit of the a background context. The first thing I want to say to you is this: machine is not the measure of a human being. A machine, we are not machines. We are not quote unquote intelligent machines. The hand wringing over ChatGPT almost makes it appear as if we are all machines, and now the machines can do whatever we are doing, so we are basically become useless. If I can speak in Urdu for a minute, वो उर्दू का एक शेर है कि करूँगा क्या अगर मोहब्बत में हो गया नाकाम, मुझे तो और कोई काम भी नहीं आता. So it was almost as if people felt that, we are just intelligent machines, and now if machines can do some of the more intelligent work, we have become useless. Now, this way of thinking is a problem. And in order for us to unravel it, what I want to suggest is, I'll give you one framework. This framework, in recent years, a number of people have written about it. My colleague and friend Stephen Moglen at Harvard University has written extensively about it. But there are other people, Karl Polanyi, Robert Pirsig, and 1,000 years ago, Sheikh Sohrawardi, who was one of the great Sufi saints. They divide knowledge into broadly two categories. Steve Margolin calls it episteme, which is kind of very abstract, almost mathematical knowledge, tautological knowledge. Episteme and techne. Techne is something which is embedded in the person's body. So all knowledge that you think about has some component of episteme and some component of techne. The problem with the modern world is that suddenly we started thinking that epistemic knowledge is not only superior, but ultimately that is the only form of knowledge. Now, what that does is that it actually makes machine the measure of man, because man also then becomes to resemble the epistemic framework that the machines bring. And the more and more things we give to the machines, the less there is for us to do. Now, Steve's point, and in fact Sheikh Sorawardi's point, and Robert Pirsig's point is that that is not how knowledge really is. And the Picasso example I gave you is also very illustrative in this regard. That machines do what is routinized and what does not require creativity. Humans do what requires creativity. We are bound to the earth. We cannot do much because a lot of our life is spent in these little routinized things. The more machines we have, the more they free us to do something which we were created to do. And that is the creative part of it. So the point I'm trying to make is we need to have a framework of thinking that allows us to realize that the routinized work is not who we are. We are all individual, creative human beings. Each one of you, and I'm talking to the younger people, before you die, you have to write one book. You have to create a work of art. In fact, your whole life should be a work of art. And that is something that you can do the moment we can free you a little bit from the routinized work that is necessary to sustain life on the planet. So, this, think about ChatGPT not in terms of, it is replacing us, because what it is replacing is not the part that is human. It's the part that is animal, it's the part that's the machine. That is what it is replacing. What it is not replacing is what is unique, what is creative, what is the genius in you, that it cannot and it can never create. It can never replace. So let's build on that. Let's find our creative spirit and let's use this opportunity to express ourselves much more fully than we have in the past. Thank you.
Fantastic. That was inspirational and comforting at the same time. Thank you. So, like this kind of leads me to my next question, actually. Jazeb, you talked about how, AI introduces a lot of efficiencies and allows us to, sort of automate mundane tasks. And Dr. Banuri, of course, is talking about, how, again, in some ways, we should focus on the creative parts of being a human being. And that's going to be our forte in the future. But my question really is that there are a lot of people currently employed, in routine mundane tasks, people who are driving, even people who are doing basic accounting, turning a trial balance into a balance sheet and P&L. AI does wonders with this stuff, and Dr. Banuri initially spoke about the Industrial Revolution, and there was job creation where there was job loss. My fear with AI is that we're not just automating physical processes, but also certain cognitive processes, be they the less creative ones. And people are concerned about this. Part of the reason for the recent Hollywood writers' strike was because they were concerned about the use of AI. I was looking at some of the world's top tech companies, which are now, the largest companies in the world. And like Apple, for example, employs 1/100th the number of employees for every $1 billion they generate as compared to a brick and mortar company like Walmart. So there's going to be a lot of displacement of people who are doing mundane jobs. And my fear is we may not need as many creative people, artists, philosophers, thinkers who are doing the inherently human things. to replace those jobs which are lost. So I'm wondering, I thought I'd ask Jazeb for his perspective on that, and then Dr. Banuri and our other panelists can comment if they want to. Your views on that, please.
Sure. I feel like the example about the artists, the script writers, the producers is a great one. When I teach people about AI, I show them both sides of the coin. On the one hand, Netflix is putting up ads for AI experts for $900,000 a year. That is how they're valuing an AI expert to come and start making AI generated content that'll give them a lot of money in return. On the other hand, people who have been creatively making this content are going on strikes. So it's two sides of the same coin. These things are happening at the same time. And in a nutshell, that represents what is kind of challenging about AI and why we're not exactly sure how these things are going to pan out in the near future. When I look at these things simplistically, my first thought is, dekhein, because of AI, the role of the entry level employee and the role of the intern will go away. Because what are those roles? Those roles are very much do research, go online, do generic routine stuff. So it seems like AI is going to take that stuff away. But the truth is, when I look at it practically, when I actually ask myself that the kind of jobs that I think I could give to AI, can I really do them at the moment? The truth is, you still need people to have oversight. You still need people to check things. Even if I use the world's best AI tool to summarize something, the truth is I cannot trust the output at this point, not just because sometimes the answer is wrong, but because sometimes the answer is not of the quality I need. So right now, AI is not at the point where I can just let it run on autopilot. I can only let it run on copilot. So I still need those entry level employees. I still need those interns to write the prompts, to use the AI tools to get the answers. They can do their work in a more efficient way, but I still need them there. I just need them to be a bit smarter about how,
Okay.
I need them to be smarter about using the AI tools and how to upskill themselves on the job. So at this point, I don't see AI necessarily taking away jobs. I see it supplementing everyone's jobs, the doctor's job, the entry level hospitality person's job. Everyone should understand how they can use AI to do their job better. And there's still place for the generic jobs, but in a slightly more specialized way. That's how I'd summarize it.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Banuri, what are your views on potential job displacement because of AI?
Again, I gave you the example of the Industrial Revolution and the assembly line. Harry Braverman wrote a very interesting book somewhere around 1920s, looking at not only job loss but also about how the economy would change. Now, the thing is that we realized at that time that there were machines and they could do a lot of work which people were doing in the past. If you look back 100 years later, you realize that the number of jobs actually went up rather than go down.
Okay.
So it's not that in the long term it actually does this, but it also is there are two other things. One is that there's a transitional cost because there are people jinko mohabbat ke alawa koi kaam nahi aata. So for them, we have to do something different. We have to retrain them. We have to reposition them. So that transition costs are very important. And the second one is that the the nature of industry, the nature of production is also going to change over time. And Braverman's book actually took us through this. I do recommend it. It's a 100-year-old book, but because it was written at a time when a similar process was taking place, it has a lot of lessons for us today. So the issue is the nature of the restructuring of production so that it can allow more creativity, more human creativity, and more of the kind of jobs that allow the human element of us to survive. What kind of a restructuring that is going to be? That is the big issue for us. At this moment, we are stuck because we are pushing everybody just to do routinized work. In Pakistan, when I look at it, everybody behaves like clerks and they just do routinized work. That's not what we are born for. What we are born for is to be creative and to bring our genius to the world. And this restructuring is something that is going to allow us. There will be transitional costs, and we have to bear those costs socially, not put the burden on the individuals. But in the long term, this is going to be something which frees us rather than binds us.
Thank you for that. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to quickly ask Nadia also, and then in fact, I think we'll move on to our next question, which I'll address directly to Melissa and Florian, which is very education related. So, Nadia, how can we make sure that people don't become unemployed as a result of the extensive use of artificial intelligence? Okay.
Ensuring people's employability in the age of AI involves upskilling and reskilling initiatives, fostering a culture of lifelong learning, and creating new job opportunities that complement AI technology. What ideas do you have for promoting a smooth transition in the workforce?
Well, fantastic. Dr. Banuri and Jazeb, she agrees with you. So fantastic. Okay, so we are Beaconhouse. I think I was congratulating you guys. But anyway, so we're a school, so AI has major implications in education, and one of the things we struggle with, particularly in the Pakistani context, is education equity and inclusiveness. And so I was wondering if you guys can comment. Melissa, maybe you can start, and then Florian, you can maybe talk about specific instances and ways in which AI has been used and can be used to make education more equitable and inclusive. So, Melissa, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think when we take a global view, what we're seeing is what historically may have been the alternative quickly moving into the center. And why is that? Well, because more and more children are not able to achieve their potential within, a traditional model of education that's existed for 260 years. We've had tech. I certainly remember the TV VCR trolley, the overhead projectors, the transparencies, the whiteboards, but actually none of them have really transformed how we reach young kids. And if we think just about some more stats, I mentioned there are 260 million kids not in school, but 120 million that are, and these are in the most crisis effective areas. They're not even achieving minimum proficiency in reading and math. We add to that the complexity of a global teacher crisis. Teachers are not well paid globally. Being a teacher myself, historically, we're also really wanting to give back to our young people, but our time is just so pressurized. So the way that I see AI looking effectively is it gives us great power to scale high quality models of education through tech, through the use of AI, to upskill and support our teacher workforce, those that are qualified and those that are not, to begin to decentralize this access and actually at the same time leveling the playing field for children that have not had equitable access historically. And I think that is something that I'm very, very excited about. That is something that my team are working really hard on. And I think it's one of the greatest opportunities to address SDG 4, which is how we can scale access to high quality education and use our AI counterpart as a mechanism that allow us to do that. Because if we can, level the playing field, take away some of the autonomy, our teachers have more time to do the fundamental thing that AI can't, which is to work and connect in human relationships with young people, to develop their mental well-being, their capacities for confidence, growth, hitting those McKinsey deltas, because that is not something that AI can do at this point in time, but they are so fundamental that we deliver in our young people. Happy children make great learners. And I think that is one of the things I see AI really being able to help in terms of that workflow. And again, going back, if we don't teach kids how to create with AI, then all they're going to do is cheat with it. And I think that's really important for policy members to remember.
Yeah, that's true. Florian.
Absolutely, Melissa. And that's a good reminder of the limitations of these generative language models. So for example, if we were to ask our AI panelists the same questions we've been asking today in a different language, let's say my home language, Romanian, which has two vowels that are not represented a lot across the writing systems on the internet, we wouldn't get as many good quality or mediocre quality answers. So there are limitations in terms of inclusion of people who speak other languages, who have other views of the world, and who are not represented in terms of their knowledge, for example, indigenous knowledge, on the internet. We're losing diversity at an alarming rate, and now a lot of the work that AI does is based on the powerful nations, the languages that carry a lot of power. So we need to be really cognizant in the way that we support students. And that reminded me of what was said in terms of the human dimension of AI and what you are saying, Melissa, about the role of the teachers. We see practical steps now. I can reassure you that no teachers will lose their jobs because of AI. There will be changes in the way that we interpret, and we have already made practical steps at the IB to strengthen the academic integrity of the work that students produce, because that was the initial worry and concern that schools had, people had. How will we know who wrote it? And that brings us back to our question today. So what if ChatGPT wrote it or other AI language model? And we continue to, like we did in the past, to ask teachers to work alongside students, writing coursework and internal assessment and reflecting on the quality of their education. So we have updated our academic integrity policy. We see schools already around the world hiring AI coordinators or heads or directors in schools so they can harness the power of the technology that we have available. And we continue to use this human dimension of teaching and relation to understand how work was built, constructed, understood, so we can let students use these tools to the best of their advantage and yet continue to use it ethically in a way that's inclusive and in a way that encourages equality across the world. There's a lot of work to do, but we are seeing the opportunities already at the IB.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we'll move on to Nadia. Nadia, can you give me 4 examples of how artificial intelligence has been used to increase equity and availability of education?
Certainly. Here are 4 examples of how AI has been used to increase equity and availability of education. 1. Personalized learning. AI-powered platforms provide customized learning experiences, adapting to individual needs and abilities, making education more accessible and inclusive. 2. Language translation. AI-powered translation tools break language barriers, enabling students to access educational resources and communicate with teachers in their native language. 3. Virtual tutoring. AI-based virtual tutors offer support and guidance to students, especially in underserved areas where access to qualified teachers may be limited. 4. Data analytics. AI helps analyze large amounts of educational data, identifying patterns and trends to improve curriculum development, identify at-risk students, and enhance targeted interventions. How do you think AI can further contribute to educational equity and availability?
Okay, fantastic. Some interesting points there, I think, Nadia. Thank you. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. I think we should definitely move on to questions now. We do seem to have a few. Okay, so yeah, let's start from the beginning. Okay, is it possible for AI to take total control over basic jobs through machine learning? Did we not already kind of discuss this? Yeah, I think let's move on to the next one. Can we hire Nadia as a teacher in Beacon House? I should rue the day that we decide to do that. But I think we've also discussed that at length. We gave calculators to the kids and it stopped them from doing mental math. Will chat gpt do the same thing to their writing skills? Okay, so I think this is a reasonably interesting question, right? I mean, we're all there is a risk. We're like a transitional generation. We had to learn stuff how to do stuff manually. So, when we use AI, we can kind of stress test it. We can gauge the quality of the output. If you grow up in a context where all you've ever done is use AI, that is risky because you may just take whatever it's saying as gospel and lose the ability for creative thinking. So can we go back to the question, please? Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, if we give them this AI crutch, is there a chance they will just become sort of automatons blindly following AI without the capability of doing basic things themselves? So, Dr. Manui, because you had some interesting things to say about this. I mean, what is there?
What difference does it make that people can't do mental math? I'm from a generation where we had to remember all of those things, the multiplication tables and so forth. My daughter doesn't have to do it, and I think she's brighter than me. It's not really a question that it's this technique that is important. It's important is what we as a whole individual can do. So the same thing about this. If somebody can help me do some routinized work, it frees up my time to do something that I really want to do. If different people have different opinions, I've been very consistent. This is the way I think about it, and this is the way I think it should be.
Big. Thank you. Jazeb, so interesting because you're from a software background as well. And, one of the things that I was at a university that we worked with recently in the UK, and the computer science department was freaking out because they were saying that, like it can write code. That's one thing it does really well, basic code. And they're really struggling with their year 1 and 2 coding students because in most cases it can write better code than them, or at least as good. Uh, and they're afraid that some of their students might lose the ability, and some of it is wrong, and they don't know when it's wrong. So, how does one address these challenges? Make sure that students. I understand the calculator example. I agree. I mean, is it really that important to be able to know mental math? But it is kind of important to be able to know coding if you want to make sure that the code being generated by the AI is accurate. So, how do we make sure that kids are competent yet using it effectively?
Now, I'm really glad you asked that question because of its implications. So, what I want you all to know is that in industry, software engineers do not actually write as much original code as you're thinking. They take a lot of their code online because it's already been made and tested for practical commercial purposes. When they get stuck on something, they go to these forums like Stack Overflow and they ask questions where they get answers where people give them the code to do specific things. That is how software is written in industry. It's not one person writing a lot of original code. It's one person understanding code well enough to kind of take these resources and put them together. If you expected software engineers to write everything from scratch, they could not make the quantity of code needed in industry. So kind of building on that, what I'm hoping you're all realizing is that it's not being able to write all the code syntax by syntax that's the valuable skill in the long run. And it's not in schools either. What schools need to do is at the basic level, they need to give assignments that are kind of free of chat gpt, like fill in this exercise or find the error in this code, things that something like chat gpt won't do easily, so they learn the basics. But when it comes time to actually writing extensive code, yes, that's available online. It was online available even before stuff like chat gpt is there. But we need to train people on understanding where the errors are, how to integrate it, how to modify it, how to make it better. So all of this training is still going to happen in the classroom. And the long-term impact of all of this is there is not going to be room for a mediocre engineer anymore. I would rather use ChatGPT instead of mediocre engineer, but there's even more value to the high quality engineer. And that's going to be true of a lot of professions.
Fantastic. Thank you. And the next question I will address to Melissa and Florian, perhaps. Do you think teachers asking students not to use Chat GPT in schools is unfair? Melissa.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the audience. Young people, put your hands up if you're already using it, and tell me what the response is.
There are a few young-ish people in the back, apparently. They're using it.
That's it.
Look, as well.
I think, to be honest, this is a fundamental skill for life, right? This is something that they are absolutely going to need for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. And if we do not activate this in our classrooms, they are going to find a way to use it. And to a lot of this point, I'm really glad on the software engineering, because what developers on the other side, we have developers they're not always good at is QA, right? Quality assess your own work. But I think what's going to happen, as we start to open up, especially around coding, is you're going to have young people who are able to code far faster and more effectively at a younger age. So, we used AI in the school, as I mentioned, and, it's no longer Scratch and Python. Our kids 11 years old are coding with C# and C++ because they can, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's about an alignment here, but I would say it is a fundamental right that we're going to need to begin to deliver this with kids and go on that journey of exploration.
Florian, we're getting to the end of our session. Quickly, your perspective on how should it be allowed in schools or not?
I want to relate a bit to the previous question in terms of writing skills. Writing skills are not text production. And immediately for us in the IB, we already have an assessment in a course in the theory of knowledge where it is possible theoretically for students to submit work that was written by ChatGPT and get the same result as a student who wrote it themselves, because we do not assess text production and language skills in there. So it's time to rethink how we think about communication, what are the language skills that students need, and value those critical thinking skills rather than text production. And then, of course, we won't be afraid to let the students use it. I agree with you, Melissa. I think students have a right to have access to tools that can make their learning better, whatever it may be. People, AI, connections, experiences in their communities, and anything else that creates a rounded student who can make the world a better place.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are more or less at the end of our session. I've found the discussion, fascinating. Myself personally, as someone who's both intrigued by AI and a bit pensive sometimes about the major impacts it's going to have on human civilization. But such are all major transformations, and all technologies can be used as a force of good and evil, and oftentimes they are used as both. And I think it's incumbent on us as human beings to make sure that we use technology, artificial intelligence being one of them, in a responsible manner that really improves the life of human beings overall around the planet. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that. Thank you to our distinguished panelists for taking the time out to be with us and sharing their valuable thoughts. And thank you to everyone in the audience for being here and being part of the session. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we're going to start. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. Assalamu alaikum. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, their partner Tech Valley, and our titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, and Interwood. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving on to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answer. The next session is on topic from west to east, the tapestry of Pakistani fashion, and the moderator is Mr. Hamza Tarar. Mr. Hamza Tarar, a distinguished interior designer, is celebrated for his unmatched aesthetic sense. As the youngest in South Asia featured in Architectural Digest and Freuda Design magazine, he has collaborated with global giants like Fendi Casa. His pioneering role at Marina Home and Dolce Vita Home concept for Diamond Foam showcases his trailblazing design and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a big hand.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the SOT, the 16th edition of the SOT events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The topic of discussion today is From West to East, the tapestry of Pakistan fashion innovation. And we have some wonderful, wonderful people here today, all very distinguished designers with us. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. Let me introduce them one by one. Mr. Ali Zishan. Ali Zishan is truly a trailblazer in the fashion industry. His brand, Ali Zishan Theatre Studio, has been captivating audiences with his magnificent designs and storytelling approach since 2009. From breathtaking collections to extravagant fashion shows and socially responsible campaigns. Next, we have Mr. Salman Parekh, founder of Manto and storyteller. He is a psychology marketing enthusiast, a content creator, reader, and relentless learner at heart. Eternally curious and always trying to shape the world one experience at a time. Introducing Zara Shah Jahan, the visionary creative director of one of Pakistan's leading fashion brands, with a deep passion for culture and South Asian identity. She has revolutionized fashion campaigns in Pakistan by promoting local talent on par with international standards. Ms. Sana Yasser, founder, CEO of Suffuse by Sana Yasser, has been in the fashion industry for over 8 years and is one of the most successful fashion houses as far as couture is concerned.
Making a lot of money.
Good one.
And the man who I don't think really needs an introduction, but I will still introduce you, Mr. Deepak Parwani. Deepak Parwani, a pioneer of Pakistan fashion, with a legacy spanning 3 decades. He has earned 6 Lux Style Awards, 2 MTV Style Guru Awards, the Best International Designer Award at Miami Fashion Week. He is the 6th innovative design house globally as recognized by the European Fashion Council. He's the only Pakistan designer featured in the Atlas of International Fashion Designers of the World. He has chaired the Pakistan Fashion Council. He's the board of direct governors of PIFT, and is on the board for PNCA. I hope I said it right.
Good enough.
Okay, so the topic of discussion, as I said, fashion isn't just sequins and silhouettes. It is what reflects, it is what forms a culture, a society, and personal identity. Particularly as far as Pakistan is concerned, I think fashion plays a very important role in our society. It shows what our culture is. It reflects our tradition, and it is very important that we keep it that way. And technology has a very important role in fashion industry, because it keeps on uh, changing it. It keeps on forming it. And I would like to know what our designers have to say. My first question would be: does the Pakistan fashion industry mold societal, cultural, and individual identities, or is it more of a reflection? Ali, would you like to say something about that?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me over. So, fashion is never created overnight. It has a baggage of history, geographical placement. So especially with Pakistani fashion, so we need to go a little back. First, the subcontinent, and then British influence, then Indian influence. So after all of that, it has taken its own shape, and fashion is rather new in Pakistan. It's been 2 decades. It was it used to be a drawing room culture before that. Only upper echelon of the society had access to fashion. Now, because fashion has become so demographic, that and so accessible, that now if there is a movement in fashion, it has a direct impact on a society. So there is an aha moment in fashion, in a show or in something. Any designer have done something out of the box. You will start seeing that in films, dramas, and a girl going to school will be following that too. So yes, it has major impact on the society, in ideology, and fashion. Not just the clothes, it's also an ideology. It's also a lifestyle. Like, I would like to quote Zara Shah Jahan. Like, her shoots, they give you a mood, they give you a narrative. It does impact your
So you're
culture and
basically
society.
saying that before it was,
Yeah, yeah,
before it was, the culture influenced fashion, and now fashion influences.
but having said all of this, it is also yin to yang. So it has a reverse impact too, a cultural impact on fashion as well. So it's a full cycle. Like, I would get inspired from a rose on a razai in Afghanistan, or in Pakistan, in Quetta. That comes in my article, in my design, and that shapes a fashion. And we take a lot of inspiration from our local culture. So it's like a full circle.
Okay, so it works both ways.
Yes.
What do you think, Salman?
So, hello. Yes, so definitely there's a massive element of identity, as you said. And the interesting thing about identity is that, fashion helps us celebrate individuality. For example, all of us here would be considered very well dressed, but we all have a certain sort of identity that now we have access to. And back in the day, because the medium where the cultures were influenced by were very limited. For example, there's only one TV channel that was out there, whether it's in Pakistan or US. So all the culture was also influenced in a very mass manner, where people would be wearing the same sort of things. However, now, because there's so many different things and elements influencing different cultures, and obviously there's an element of national culture, but then there's very community-based cultures where we'd go and see that South Asian writers mostly wear kurtas without collars, right? So that's a part of their identity. And I think fashion in that way helps us find our belonging. What is it that we belong to, our community? And it creates a culture in its own.
I feel like your brand, for example, it basically like in Manto, you see all these writings and, you know, from poetry. That's basically taking culture and bringing it to fashion, right? So are you saying that you take your inspiration from the culture, or are you think you're giving back something to the culture? Are you changing a certain society by doing that?
So definitely, as step one, it's a lot that we take from the culture itself. It's what has shaped us individually as well. And then once we have decided to take the responsibility of putting it out there, it becomes our responsibility to do justice to this and do the right sort of contribution and make sure that we are very clear that who it's for. And I'm sure that whether ornis or shirts with Urdu writing may not be liked by every other person, but there's a certain sort of community of people that say, oh, this resonates with me and this is where I belong. So in that sense, yes, we do take from culture, but it's also our responsibility to do justice to it.
And I think by doing that, it also opens up the society to more options, and it makes them feel that it's okay. It's good to, like, some people might, you know, initially think that, oh, why is there Urdu writing on something? And I feel that if you keep seeing that again and again, and it's put in their head, and they start liking it, it becomes a trend, and that's.
And it's also about what kind of people are wearing it.
Yeah.
So such amazing people that I see even during this SOT events, where the people that I would look up to, educators, doctors, journalists. So when we see people that we look up to embracing something, it also, and if we want to become a part of their ideology, their community, we kind of start doing what we do. So there's this concept called people like us do things like this. And that defines almost all the decisions that we take. So if I wake up early in the morning, I've decided that people like us do things like this. If I stay up late and work, that's what I've decided. So seeing the right sort of people wear what they're wearing also influences our choices in fashion.
Zara, what would you like to say on this?
When I started my brand, and I was looking for an identity for the brand as well, and I was looking within myself and within the culture, I do think that Pakistan, we've been, one question that I keep on saying that everybody should ask is that why fashion has done well in Pakistan. So we've seen that fashion has always been such a how do you go, frivolous topic in Pakistan, because we do have very serious issues. We do have Pakistan is a developing country, and if you look at it from a world's point of view, world looking towards Pakistan, they would never think that fashion is so big in Pakistan. So the question arises that why did Pakistan do well? You go to any mall all over the world, you'll see Zara, H&M, all these big stores. It's Turkey, Thailand, any cultural, Malaysia, whatever, their malls, you won't see such big local brands thriving like Khadi, Sapphires, and all, with big stores influencing the culture of mall culture as well within Pakistan. And that question arises that we 20 years ago we were struggling with the Pakistani identity. We have a major identity. We have and had a major identity crisis within our culture, because anything very desi was considered Indian, anything very modern and glittery and crystallized was considered Arab. So we have these within fashion, have these two very strong identities going on as well. And the more rich you are more Arab culture influenced, and the more middle class you are or lower income you're more desi. That is a very major differentiation between fashion culture as well. And so how do we change that? Where do I fit into that? Where do we have couture garments which are very desi? What is the Pakistani culture? What is the Pakistani kurta? So these are some identities that I struggled with a lot throughout my journey, and eventually I feel why I resonated with my clientele is because I decided I'm not going to fake it. I'm very Lahori, I'm very Pendu, I'm very Punjabi, and I'm not going to hide that. And I'm going to just do who I am and go from there. And somehow it just gave a voice to a lot of people, and that's how the brand started. And one of the reasons that Lahori fashion has made it big is because of this, because we are not influenced too much by our crowd or our fashion friends that, oh, this is pendu or this is too desi. We can be desi and still be cool, and we are not influenced by our social culture over there. And that is why made if you think made in Lahore, and you like you think made in Pakistan, you think somehow made in Pakistan hasn't done too well in the world. Like made in Pakistan, the identity of made in Pakistan doesn't resonate well with the world. You think bad culture of factories, you think bombs, you think terrorism, you think made in Pakistan, its identity is not that amazing in the world. But somehow the Lahori fashion has been able to do made in Lahore very well. You say made in Lahore, you think Badshai Masjid, you think Lahore Fort, you think the culture, you think the dances, you think the color, you see Ali Zishans, you think my brand, and a lot of photographers and everything. And that has shaped a culture, that has put Lahore on a global culture platform because of this reason.
Well, I feel that, when you said made in Pakistan and why it hasn't done really well abroad, well, you have to start from home.
Yeah.
When we Pakistanis would not like something that says made in Pakistan, then why would the rest of the world
No, because
like it?
we have there are certain influence that the fashion doesn't have, which is the international media.
Yeah.
So we don't have that influence, right? But whatever the international media is portraying to the world, we can't control it. Unfortunately, there are certain things we love made in Pakistan. I love made in Pakistan,
Yeah.
but when it comes to an international forum, that hasn't been promoted. The branding has not done that well.
But so are you saying that your brand has a lot of cultural influences in your brand? Like obviously you take your inspiration from the culture. So is it more that you take the influence from the culture, or you think are you giving back to the culture more?
It's together.
It's
It's
together.
first of all be true to who you are. I think that's where it starts. If you are going to constantly have influence from the West, then you're like, you're creating this a mismatch within the culture as well. You're seeing, your eyes are seeing something else, and then you're influencing completely something else. One example was lawn. Have you ever seen any white blonde girl wearing lawn in the streets of Europe? No. So what are we seeing? We're seeing young Pakistani girls wearing lawn fabric in Pakistan, while the campaigns and the shoots are white blonde girls wearing lawn in Europe. That's a disconnect, complete disconnect. So these are the things that I feel that it comes from being true to yourself.
Yeah, I think that was a very good thing. Like, I think it was one of your campaigns, and what I really liked was that it was just plain Jane, simple girls, just that you would see randomly working in a house, and they were wearing your clothes, and that what I thought was a good reflection, because you have to see who's going to wear your product. And if you can see that, then obviously, otherwise, if you see someone who's not even Pakistani wearing that product and you're trying to be that, that's, I don't think is right. You're absolutely right. Sana, what would you like to say? That cultural influence on you, or are you giving back to the culture?
I feel anything in the form of art is influenced by some form of the culture, some form of whatever that we are known for. And I truly feel like being a Pakistani is also being part of the subcontinent that we are from. It's not entirely like we are a very fairly young country as compared to the subcontinent or the cultures around us. And we are somewhat very influenced by our neighboring countries or by what we were known for 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So yes, I mean, fashion is ever evolving. It's not the same thing that it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And we constantly take influence from not just from within Pakistan, but also from everywhere else around the world. I do think that Pakistani culture generally, the whatever that we can bring forth as a Pakistani brand is a lot more. We have a lot more to offer, as unfortunately that's been put out in the like. Generally, if somebody, whoever is looking into Pakistan, they don't find it exciting to invest that time and energy to bring forth what we actually truly have to offer. So, but I feel like if we truly just stick to what we are doing right now, we'll eventually find our place within the community of fashion around the world, not just here within in the subcontinent. I feel like our neighboring country has put in a lot of money and power into promoting who they are as a culture. Like whatever they try to bring forth in terms of tourism and fashion and everything, it's like they're very proud and loud of who they are. And unfortunately, we just need to get there, as Zara said. Like, we have this weird conflict between, oh, we don't want to be too desi or we don't want to be too modern, and we're constantly juggling between both ends of the spectrum. But I feel we just need to find and stick to our true identity of who we are, and really find our place in the where we stand within the culture, where we stand within the fashion community around the world, and just truly be proud and loud about what we can bring forth.
And that's great. And Deepak, what would you like to say?
I think to sum it up, like Ali pointed out and Zara pointed out, that we can't see culture in a vacuum. Culture is, we've got a culture that's 5,000 years old, and to accept or to deny it is something, unfortunately, is what are the effects of, let's say, partition. But when we move forward, the real fashion really starts after the case of the exploding mangoes. Before that, you were kind of wearing a black sherwani, and everybody wore black sadris and white latha shalwar kameez, and that's how latha became famous. Let's put it that way. Now that we look at fashion, the real balance of retail, fashion, dynamic identity, it's only been the last 3 decades for Pakistan. And that includes art, cinema, that includes design, that includes everything that has come out in the last 30 to 40 years. If you put culture in a box and you say, oh, culture started from here and then ended here or started from here, it's not possible, because it's something that's ever evolving. Okay, and your influences are also ever evolving. Whether your influences are a rose from Quetta or a piece of relief from somewhere, or an ajrak or a case or anything. Okay, these are your cultural identities, and those identities are amalgamated over hundreds of years, and you constantly take influence. Okay, so we can't also turn on and say, okay, oh, just because we've drawn let's say a line between two countries, the cultures don't amalgamate. They're very similar to each other also in terms of identity. The red bride is a great example of that culture. Okay, if we look at brides in Afghanistan, they were green. If you look at brides in Jordan or in Syria, they were white, or Saudi Arabia, they were white. Only because of culture amalgamation, our brides wear red, just like the Indian brides, for example. Okay, so culture cannot be dissected and then assimilated. As far as the phenomena of Pakistani fashion is concerned, and like Zara said, it's an individual effort. That was one of the reasons that fashion councils were made, so that we could have a voice and a collective platform, so we could grow together and grow stronger as design, or as fashion designers or fashion retailers. Okay. The reason we have no voice abroad, I would say that the government has never taken Pakistani fashion seriously to put it on that map. When you compare it to other countries where they actually have chambers which only promote fashion, high design, value-added design, and many other things. So you take a collective force and you go forward, and that force gives an identity to your brand or to your country, which is Make in Pakistan or Made in Pakistan.
But do you think that, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you, but when you said that a collective force, that is that everyone has to get together to do something like that, but do you think in Pakistan that is a problem with, separate councils instead of separate cities?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a problem like that at all. When you look at when you look at yourself on a global brand level, then you need that help anyways for the identity to change, because you actually have a very negative identity. And they're right that there's no concept of people get really surprised that, oh my God, you are a fashion designer from Pakistan. Oh my God, you guys make this in Pakistan. Oh my God, you wear this in Pakistan. So these are collective questions that need to be answered for the positive image of the country globally. And you have to find a voice. For example, I'm not going to negate, but India's positive voice is Bollywood, and Bollywood is a great front for whatever India does, right? So what is your great front when you go out into that global platform? Bombs, or I don't know, negativity?
Can I add something in it? I feel that it is, we do it a lot. Naturally, I do it as well. But I think this is a time where, as Pakistanis, we need to, as entrepreneurs, businessmen, creative people, and artists, we need to stop comparing ourselves to India.
No, I'm not comparing. This is
No,
not a
not you,
comparison.
just generally.
No, this
I
is not a
feel that we do
comparison.
it a lot. In a conversation of us being one of the best amongst, and we are better than or as good as Afghanistan, India, Bangladesh, all of them. And in a conversation which is about Pakistan, let's not bring India, because I don't care what they do. We have to work on what we do and how we can promote ourselves
I'm
and how
not.
we can.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not. I wasn't. I'm giving an example.
Yeah.
Every country has a platform or a voice that takes the rest of the country forward.
Yeah.
Okay?
We need that.
Someone has cinema. Someone has art. French has something. The Americans have something. So everyone has a platform. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, it's easier to compare a platform because it's right next door. Okay, there are countries that create platforms, and there are countries that already have platforms. In terms of, let's take, you guys don't want me to take that name. I'll say
run by
Dubai.
Tulip. Like Netherlands run by Tulip, like
Yeah.
major economy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So, or like Dubai, okay, how they are now creating a new identity for themselves without having any culture, without having any history, without any background, but they're making that effort.
Yeah.
We haven't made that effort. The effort has always been done on an individual platform, and it needs to come together to move onto a global platform. That's all it needs. So, a simple example, I remember years ago we were in Washington, and Pakistan had hired a PR company. And this PR company used to do the PR for Pakistan in the US Senate. And the same company had requested a meeting with the Pakistani authorities, saying that we feel that you also need a global PR company for Pakistan as a country. Okay. And, but we do not agree to that, because apparently we don't want a positive PR as such. But yeah, coming back to fashion, it is dynamic. It's incredible. We have our own identity. Our designers done brilliantly well. They've all found their incredible voices. And collectively, those voices are very, very powerful. All they need is an audience like you.
Well, Zara, on what you said earlier, when you said that, we're really not concerned about what's happening next door. But do you really think that our fashion is not inspired by what happens next door? Because I really feel that Bollywood and what we see every day, we are all inspired by that. Because our audience actually wants all that.
I will tell you what. India has decided, as a country, if you're going to take the neighboring country's name, that they don't want to. They want to negate the Muslim side of their identity, because they do have a very major and the Muslim identity of India has influenced culture, movies, fashion, everything. But they have decided in this day and age that they don't want anything to do with it. So honestly speaking, we have taken that charge of the South Asian Muslim identity, and they are taking a lot of influence from us. I have seen Ali Zishan's clothes copied from very big designer. I think I sent a picture to you as well. Yeah. And our campaigns are being copied. Our campaigns are being copied. Our clothes are being copied. Our identity is being copied.
Yes.
Yes, that's up. No, it's just that they have a bigger voice.
Yes.
They mount it with the Bollywood, with the song and the larger than life and their population. Their dynamics are very different. But as far as core talent is concerned, baby, we are fabulous.
Yeah, I know. We have more talent than, obviously, we are more talented, but we need to promote ourselves more than, I guess.
It's becoming about India, Pakistan.
Okay, so going on to the next question. With the global surge in fast fashion, to what extent are Pakistani designers ensuring sustainable and ethical practices while addressing the challenges and opportunities?
Guys?
Starting with you, Ali.
Sorry, come again?
Okay. With the global surge in fast fashion, to what extent are Pakistani designers ensuring sustainable and ethical practices while addressing the challenges and opportunities?
Okay, so this particular thing, I can only talk about myself. I am a big flag bearer for sustainability. I have made my ecosystem in a way that no waste goes out. We are plastic free. my house and my studio and my factory as much as we can. Also, we are trying really hard to incorporate and replace those luxury fancy fabrics with our humble cotton. So that's eco-friendly. Then we are also promoting fair trade as much as we can. So these are the few aspects I'm looking into personally as an establishment also. Also, I'm trying to create awareness among clients to make right choices. That's also very important. What they choose to wear, that's also very important. We can do as much. They are other side of the coin, so they need to also be more responsible. So then collectively we can be a sustainable nation and sustainable fashion industry. So I believe that you need to give as much as take as
Yeah.
there should be right balance.
But do you think they listen? Do clients would the
But
clients want cotton joras?
by the way, most of them are very mindful.
Really?
बहुत दफा फैशन में आपको उनको डिक्टेट करना पड़ता है, उनको कभी खुद भी नहीं पता होता है.
Yeah.
So and especially I'm very proud of our next young generation. They are very mindful of their decisions and what they wear. They are much smarter. So I'm very hopeful.
No, that's great. Salman.
So I believe with sustainability, there's two sides of coin. So there's an element of intent, and I'm sure that all of us would want to reduce waste. However, then there's some barriers that come with the operational limitations that unfortunately, because for us to be able to go in a certain way, there has to be the whole supply chain available for a sustainable line. And I think it's an effort that we need to put on many different fronts, from how the fabric is also created to how it's stitched, and between through all those particular things, the logistics and all those sort of things. So understanding all of those particular challenges, obviously there is a massive intent on our side, and wherever we can, we'd want to use those biodegradable materials, whether it's packaging, recycled plastic, whether, for example, we want to get rid of plastic. However, if we keep our products without those particular shoppers, in our environment, there's dust, there's all those sort of things. And on that scale, there's no alternate as such available. So in the long run, yes, we do have a responsibility to create an impact and influence the people responsible for these things to come up with more sustainable solutions. However, at the same time, within our control, whatever we can do, I think it's our duty to probably go through with that.
I would like to add this, that I know that sustainability is a very trending topic right now, but honestly, the world's emission levels and the where the oceans are right now have nothing to do with Pakistan. We hardly contribute anything in the pollution of the world. The bigger countries who have killed or are killing the earth, they need to talk about it. We need to create jobs.
That's interesting. That's good. Sana.
As Zara said, that this is something that is not just a conversation for Pakistan. It has to be taken part in a whole worldwide phenomena on how we can actually make sustainable products, which end up being a lot more cost, like it's a lot more expensive as compared to what we can do otherwise. So it is a conversation that has to happen on a bigger level. I feel like the government also needs to sort of promote and help the industry into negating towards, help us get towards where maybe there are ways of sustainability that we can enforce in our current way of doing things, but we are not aware of that. So we would like, it's a constant learning process. Obviously, sustainability has to be the next step for anywhere any industry, not just in the fashion industry of Pakistan. But yeah, right now we are learning. We're seeing what, we do have much bigger
Being sustainable can be expensive
and
sometimes.
also
So yeah,
learning
you
how to
have to.
be sustainable, but also run a successful business, because at the end of the day, we are all running a business and it has to make sense on a lot of levels. But yes, it's something that we cannot negate. Like, we have to learn through and to figure out how we can come up with ways to help within the future.
Deepak?
I think sustainable fashion and responsible fashion are two different things. Most of the waste that is created is by fast fashion. When you talk to designers or couturiers, we don't create so much waste. That waste is very minimized. We understand as how to get rid of that waste and how to create different things out of it. So the imprint is completely negligible. Now, if we take let's take a pair of jeans, for example. Okay, each pair of jeans washing takes about 70 liters of water or something. Okay, so when you have when you have when you have fast fashion, which is like Zara or H&M or all these brands, that is where the real waste is created. Okay, Pakistan being the second largest importer of second-hand clothing in the world after Africa. Okay, is actually a market that wears second-hand clothing. Okay, the clothing that is coming from all over the world is actually being used by people in Pakistan. So in a way, we are also not creating waste, but kind of like helping to reduce that waste moving forward.
That's okay. So the next question, I'm going to move on to the next question. How is technology's role in wearable fashion influencing Pakistan's fashion landscape, and what doors might this open for the future? Ali?
With technology, I have like love and hate relation. It's like a toxic sweetheart I have. Because on one side, it's really helping us revolutionize our industry. So it's replacing manual labor. So efficiency is there. Digital, 3D printing, blah 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 blah, virtual reality. But I still like mass up cutting my pattern. I still want, like, personally, I feel if one machine can work for 12 people, I rather kill the machine and give work to 12 people. This is what my ideal situation would be. Having said that, it's really helping. I'm also adapting with it because I'm a very paper pencil person. I'm very like, my magic is between tip of the pen and the paper. That's the real magic is. I'm by the way, I'm learning digital drawing, and with my so I'm trying to cope up with that. As an industry, of course, it's really helping. So what I have done is I have divided into two major segments. For the fast fashion, for Pret, where you need, by the way, fashion in Pakistan is on steroids right now. So there's like one collection, second collection, third collection, fourth collection. There used to be times when it would be like one big collection summer, one big collection winter, right? Yeah. So to match that fast pace, we definitely need technology. We need help from there. But having said that, I would like to keep the old style of designing alive. My couture segment is all manual. There's no machine, as less as possible. On the fast fashion side, which is Pret, luxury Pret, all the lines, that's where we use a lot of technology.
So for mass production, basically, technology is a better idea, and for couture, you would like it to be okay. That's great. Salman.
So I believe technology is just a tool, and it really depends. You don't have to use it where it does not resonate with your story. For example, in case of Ali's story, obviously, if in some of his couture, if he uses some of those technology, that may kill the purpose because his story is more organic, more raw in that sense. Yeah. So wherever, I think we need to kind of realize and be very clear about our own stories and where does technology fit in and can enable us. And I think the key word is enabling. So technology has done great favors. For example, if back in the day, the barrier to entry was quite high, that if you had to start being out there to the public, you may had to invest in a shop, and then you had to make a lot of inventory to fill the shop. That is now replaced by just making a website and only making a few pieces and then trying and testing yourself out there. So definitely, technology has brought so many new voices forward. For us, it played a massive role because we did not know anything, and still we are quite confused if we know so much about retail or not. But it's the availability, accessibility of technology that enabled us to test a lot of things, to see if our voice would be heard by someone. And if it's considered and taken in that particular sense, then it's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with him that technology is just a tool, and technology has, especially in countries like Pakistan, where we do have hand embroidery and local people doing a lot of work for us. We feel that we might lose because of technology. They might lose jobs, but that hasn't happened. Technology has created a lot of new jobs. When multi-head embroidery machines came, everybody was very skeptical and said that hand embroiderers are going to lose their jobs and everything is going to go on multi-head. But multi-head created new jobs, which is the tracers. There are now thousands of tracers who work for the fashion industry, and tracers is an art in itself, and they're paid very, very well. And so each technology comes with its own challenge. It helps and it creates as well. It You have to manage it properly.
I'd like to add one thing, a very tiny thing. So there's always this fear that technology is coming and it's going to take our jobs. And but even right now, there's a massive conversation that with AI, and there's a lot of these particular technology that would replace a lot of people. But at the same time, I think it enables us to focus on other things. For example, people are still there; they can still work on things, but the things that can be automated. For example, you needed a translator to translate Urdu to English, but now in near future that job will not be there. But however, the people that were doing that job can now focus on some more value creating sort of a job. So I think it also has an opportunity on that front.
Um, I also have a very love and hate relationship with technology when it comes to creating something. I feel like there are challenges when you, let's say, want to create something. You have this design in your mind and you want to put it forth in a collection, and you are trying to figure out, okay, what should the cost be? Like, what is the price point for this collection, and how do we work around it? Obviously technology and giving us those a little bit more handy ways of doing things in a way that we can cut cost tremendously, as it was maybe like 10-12 years ago even. But the true essence of work and craftsmanship and the intimacy of doing things by hand, I don't think there is ever going to be a replacement for that. But yes, we like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, even cell phones were not something that we were used to, or even the idea of carrying one phone with us 24/7. So we evolved, we learned from it, we are trying to figure out how to live with these changes that is happening left, right, and center and every day. And I think it is exciting where in terms of AI and in terms of fashion, like I have seen people creating images from AI, and like there is no photographer, there is no model, there are literally no clothes even. They're just creating images on a computer, and it looks as real as it can be. And it is kind of scary because we feel like the whole intimacy of creating something with like bunch of different minds, and it's not just us, it's my photographer as well, it's my model as well, it's someone who's doing the makeup, as small as doing someone's hair or setting the eyebrows or whatnot. Like I feel like I want to experience that, and
I feel you, sister.
Sorry?
I feel you, sister. Because we might go out of job.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
I don't think AI is.
no, it's not that. It's just the way of, yeah. No, it's also the way we are doing things, like the experience of it.
Yeah.
You know, in 10 years and 15 years, maybe the younger generation would come along and just be like, oh, let's just create this image and sell it online, and we don't even have to make the product unless we have to sell it. You know, like I'm just giving you an idea. It's not like we don't know how it is actually going to translate in 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. We can only assume, and obviously, because we don't know anything yet, it is a little scary. We don't know how it is going to be, but I genuinely do hope so that we don't lose our intimate touch that we give within the products that we make, we sell. And yeah, I think it's important to keep hold of that at least.
I think technology is incredible. I think it's brought us this far. I remember buying my first computer when computers came out, the Amiga, Apple. Okay, it used to be a small screen, and there was a green dot that used to just run across. And what, in 50 years?
Yeah.
In 50 years, how far we've come that we've got our entire business on our phones. The entire communication, entire design, approvals, everything. I mean, when we started design, we come from what I call the pre-Photoshop era. So when you used to shoot with photographers, if it was a generous photographer, you got 3 rolls of film. If it was the Hasselblad format of photography, we got 2 rolls. Okay, जिसमें 12 तस्वीरें होती थी. You did your entire shoot in those. You cut them up and you printed those pictures. And look at that era, maybe 3 decades ago, and look at the era now. And the convenience of technology, the reach of technology, the accessibility globally. Okay, not just for us, but for our design, for our clients. Okay, and how we can actually sit there and take even orders from a client remotely from anywhere else instead of talking to them on a phone. So I think technology is a phenomenal way forward in terms of design, architecture, in terms of fashion, and that fallacy, yes, and in some in many businesses, yes, it will replace humans where robotics are needed or AI is needed. But जो हाथ की बात है वो हाथ की बात है वो तो कभी change ही नहीं हो सकती.
But then again, with fleeting trends, consumer demands, and as you said, so many collections in a year, how does one keep their unique artistic voice? Like, do you think designers can do that, or is it going to be repetitive, or
Not
how
really.
does that work?
You keep on doing it. I mean, take an example of Pakistani fashion. You're probably taking out about 12 to 14 collections in a year. It's every 6 weeks that you now take out a collection. Okay, Eid collection and Valentine collection and New Year collection and Choti Eid collection and Christmas capsule or this capsule. Okay, Black Friday, White Friday. It just goes on and on and on. You keep on doing it, and that's what designers really, really are.
But you think that you can retain your artistic values and like your look, and like how many times can you do the same
I think if you have your own individual voice,
Yeah.
that voice speaks through your design, then sky's the limit. I mean, nobody can really stop you from becoming redundant. To say that, oh, technology will make us redundant, no, because the thought of the original design will still come from you. The technology will only process it. Okay, and that's how it's going to be. In today's day and age, when we work with print design, when we work with digital print design, it's just so much more easier to look at everything on the computer and just approve it instead of waiting for the karigar to bring the screen back, take the screen, bring the screen back again, fix the color, take the screen back again, do color matchings. Now everything is done in 24 hours and you're done. You moved on to the next collection while the team is already working on it.
Okay, so I think we should move to the question and answer session. We have a first question. Who is influencing whom? The influencers, the fashion bloggers, or the international market? Who is influencing whom?
So I personally feel that there is definitely an element of designs being influenced by what's going on. However, primarily it becomes a designer's voice that eventually they're playing with uncertainty and they're like, oh, is this going to work or not? And a prime example is, for example, Rasta, where it's become it's gone global. And I don't think those designs were influenced by any other person, but rather his own imaginations on that front end. But once obviously it's out there, his work is probably now influencing other sort of people to see, oh, this seems so interesting and it's inspiring, and maybe this is something that we should try. So yes, definitely there's an element of influence, and obviously, if a work is created very well, then people would want to wear it, influencers would want to wear it, and then that would have a yin yang sort of an impact.
So, but you think there's this transformation from the west to the east that's happening? I mean, although you say that we've all been influenced from our own country, but there is obviously transformation from west to east. Do you think that's threatening to our society in any way?
Because I don't believe there has been. I think it's been east to west. If you right now go to any fast fashion brand right now, they are wearing long tunics, straight pants, looks like shalwar kameez. Eastern influence is much bigger than Eastern influences on fashion has always been much bigger. It could be Japan, it could be India, the biggest textile industry of the world, which have been for years, is always come from there. And yes, couture gowns, we don't wear couture gowns. They always come from West. Suits, couture gowns, they are Western fashion. They come from West. And that's how they dress. And yes, if any brand wants to make couture gowns, they will always take some level of influence from French and Western influences. But other than that, our local fashion is very local and is not influenced by the West.
I think to say that we inspire them or they inspire us, fashion is now a global
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone inspires everyone.
Yeah.
So the earlier question also, when you say bloggers or fashion writers or journalists, everyone feeds off each other pretty much. Okay.
Yes.
You have the bottom feeders and then you have the upper feeders. But as far as fashion is concerned, that's how the cycle is. And if one doesn't feed off the other, the cycle doesn't move forward, because that's how influences are also.
But can I add one thing? Why I was saying this was, Deepak, is that Pakistan, India are the only two countries left who wear their local clothing in fast fashion. The rest of the world has gone to wear Western clothing because they don't like the way Pakistan is actually is still bigger than like 80 to 90% of our women.
But aren't we now seeing brands that are making East and West in
Yeah,
Pakistan?
they make it.
Yeah.
But in fact, but the 90% of our women in daily wear still wear local clothing.
Obviously.
But that's nowhere else in the world. It's exclusive to Pakistan, which is an amazing thing that we need to talk about. That's why our fast fashion brands do so well. The rest of the world in daily wear, they've all gone to Western. So of course, when you are
What about
making,
Syria, Morocco, Jordan?
they don't wear.
They wear the local clothes.
No, not in every day. They wear abayas on top of it, but they wear Western clothes.
Oh, because influences the Western. Yeah, okay.
Ali, you had to say something?
I think influence generally, there's a bigger scheme of things. It's more like जो अर्थ की मूवमेंट में स्टार क्लोजर होता है, दैट मेक्स सम इम्पैक्ट ऑन अर्थ. सो एक ही टाइम पे बहुत से लोगों को एक ही चीज पसंद आने लग जाती है. इसी तरह से जो बहुत बड़े अफेयर्स या बहुत मेजर चीजें होती हैं, बिग इवेंट्स वर्ल्ड वाइड, may it be world war, may it be a pandemic, may it be, after pandemic everybody started wearing casual more, so lazy casual became formal. So influence starts from there. Then of course in marketing, what we have learned that it starts from the upper crust of the society, the models, the influencers, then the regular girl would wear it, and
The filter down effect, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So it starts from the top and trickles down to the bottom.
And you think can clothes be designed for all classes of the society?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the trickle down effect is between fast fashion and when they take inspiration from design houses. So Zara is a great example of that, the trickle down effect. They copy everything off the RAM from high-end designers, and you find the same piece, same color, same cut in a cheaper fabric in their stores.
And now Shein.
Trickle down effect.
Shein
has taken over.
What steps are you taking to bring in Pakistan culture to international platforms? Would you like to? Who would?
I play Noor Jahan songs on my run.
That we all know. Yes. Well, in your campaigns also.
Yeah.
What
Super
steps
proud,
are you taking
Pakistan
to bring
proud.
Pakistani culture to international platform? That's the thing is,
Right.
I'll be very honest. We are positioned in a place as a country. We are not on any international platform.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
So,
But maybe what steps would you like to take to be on?
I'll answer that question.
It is also a very personal. I feel like that whatever each brand or
Individual. It's an individual platform. What we said earlier, that platform needs to be created for the Pakistani fashion to move forward. For that,
as a collective.
You have the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, you have Texport, stuff like that, but it's a more focus on the domestic market as opposed to the global markets.
Yeah.
In the past, we have taken exhibitions to India, to England, to Norway, to many other places through the government. But again, it's been catered to the local communities or local Pakistanis who live there. So the fashion that was focused on was that the buyers would be local as opposed to international. Um, as as designers, when we go abroad doing fashion weeks, let's say international fashion weeks, that is the only time we try to take the Pakistani voice or our culture or our identity to put on that global platform in terms of how we look at fashion to present. Other than that, this is an exercise that needs to be done collectively for Pakistan's voice to move forward globally.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, I think we'd
Absolutely.
like to end this session. Thank you to all the designers who were here to discuss this topic with us, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there.
Tomorrow event.
Good morning. I'll put my husband on now we've established the link. If you can hear me, can you?
Yes, we can. It's been great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, their partner Tech Valley, and our titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, and Interwood. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving on to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is, hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answers. Next on the bucket, we have a beautiful conversation, an afternoon with Jeffrey Archer, and the moderator for this session is Ms. Rania Faisal. Ms. Rania Faisal is a passionate A-level student at Beaconhouse, Karakoram campus, Islamabad. She is an avid reader and a high achiever who actively engages in debates and MUNs. She dreams of becoming a prolific writer in the future, taking inspiration from Lord Jeffrey Archer. Ms. Rania, welcome on board.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to introduce Ms. Salima Hashmi as the interviewer of this session. Salima Hashmi is an artist, curator, and art historian. She is the founding dean at Maryam Dawood School of Visual Art and Design, Beaconhouse National University, and a former professor and principal of National College of Arts, Lahore. Ms. Hashmi is an award-winning author and recipient of the President's Medal for Pride of Performance. Well, our guest for this session needs no introduction as we have grown up reading his books. Jeffrey Archer is a record-breaking author with 275 million copies sold worldwide, excelling in fiction, short stories, and nonfiction. An Oxford Blue in athletics, a former member of Parliament and the House of Lords. His latest novel, Traitor's Gate, is sixth in the line of William Warwick's series. An art collector, amateur auctioneer, and philanthropist who has raised over £51 million for charity. I will now hand this over to Ms. Salima Hashmi.
Welcome to Pakistan again, Mr. Jeffrey Archer, and this time to our capital, Islamabad. Your conversation with us last year struck quite a chord, especially with the younger generation to whom you constantly referred to in your conversation. We just felt that this should maybe an ongoing conversation between you and young people every year. As one octogenarian to another, I first want to ask you about the absolutely punishing routine that you described to us last year, the routine with which you write. And well, that was a year ago. So a year on, another year older, does it get any easier? Are you lightening up a little? And more important, do you still enjoy it? So for those of us who are here, would you describe again the kind of writing routine you have?
It never gets easier. One assumes, one thinks, we're having reached the grand old age of 83, that it would get easier, but in truth it doesn't. I rise at 5:30 in the morning. I work from 6 until 8 for 2 hours. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 10 until 12 for 2 hours. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 2 until 4 for 2 hours. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 6 until 8 for 2 hours. I go to bed about 9:30. I rise again the next day at 5 to 5:30. The first draft will take me around 40 days, about 300 hours. And the book you have in front of you, Traitor's Gate, is the 14th draft. As I said, you would think it would get easier. I think I'm a better craftsman, but it still takes that amount of time if you want to be happy with it. Because you see, I handwrite every word. I'm not a modern child who can press buttons. Not me. I still handwrite every single word. It's typed up for me by a secretary, triple spaced. Then I work on it with a pencil. And that's sent back, and this process goes on. And on my desk in the next room, I have the 14th draft. I hope I'm reading it through for the last time, but I still can't be sure.
If we can talk a little bit about the Warwick series, because this is something that you talked about extensively last year, and because it is a series, about this constable who you start with, and you projected that the last of the series you would be writing when you were 86. Are you still planning it to be that way?
Well, every book is individually different. Every book is an individual and different subject. So it might be drugs, it might be murder, it might be police protection. The latest one is about stealing the crown jewels, which was given to me in a very strange circumstances. I was on a ship with my wife traveling around the coast and sat next to a man who said he'd got the story for my next book, which I usually say, "Have you killed your wife?" And if they don't say yes, I move on. And then he said, even worse, he said, "I can tell you how to steal the crown jewels." And everyone knows that the crown jewels has only been stolen once by Colonel Blood in 1671, and he didn't even get out of the tower. And I would have moved on if I hadn't been only at the soup course. But then he announced that he was a member of the royal household. So I listened more carefully, and in 2 minutes he told me how to steal the crown jewels. And it did indeed become the next book. It required the most immense amount of research because everything depends on the timing. So that's the latest book. Now, to answer your more demanding question, at my age, you do begin to wonder how much longer you will be allowed to go on. And I've had an idea in my mind for several years that has been coming to fruition. So I might make a break in the next year and write a standalone novel, which, as I say, has been fermenting in my mind and is an attempt to write the new Cain and Abel.
This series that you're talking about, it is centered, or it's included people who you've known well. And there are people who are well known to the world at large, like Margaret Thatcher, for example, or Princess Diana. And then you say that, okay, Warwick has been there throughout. He started as a constable and so on. Does Warwick evolve? Do you work on the fact that the man is also aging? Things are changing in his life. How do you plan to, or how do you think about evolving this character so that his personality evolves at the same time as he's getting older?
Well, it began as a constable in the first book, Nothing Ventured. He then goes to being a sergeant when he tackles drugs. He then goes to being an inspector when he tackles murder. He then goes to chief inspector when he tackles art theft. And so it moves up. And yes, he does develop. He and his wife, Beth, and their children move on and on and on. And the plan was always that it would be a separate individual book, but every time he would be a different rank and he would be doing a different crime. And I hope to live to 86, as you mentioned, because by then he would have become the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, having gone on to superintendent, chief superintendent, commander, commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. So I need to live that long.
There's a kind of elite circle that you often describe, which your life and your access has allowed you. Do you purposely seek out those people as being, players in your stories? Do you, alongside, seek out those who are really living on the margins or who are the down and out? Do you use them as sources of inspiration as well?
Every human being is a source of information, and every time I meet people, I'm equally fascinated by them. So yes, everybody counts. I have had the privilege of working with Margaret Thatcher for 11 years and with working with Princess Diana as her auctioneer for her charity work. So it was irresistible in next in line not to do a story about Princess Diana. And of course, Margaret Thatcher gets regular mentions because that's the period of time I'm going through. But what you call down and outs are just as interesting to me, and sometimes far more interesting than the rich and famous.
Hundreds and thousands of people have read your books
What?
and enjoyed
What?
them.
What? 100
Sorry,
million people?
sorry,
100 million?
millions.
Oh, wait,
Millions.
wait, wait. 100 million people have read Cain and
Millions
Abel.
and
What do you
millions.
mean? 100 million people. What do you mean? I'm coming off this show. I'm going home.
Absolutely. So the question I want to ask you is, what do you read? What do you read, presuming you get time to read? And do you read whodunits also?
I read a book a week, usually on recommendation. Usually someone saying you mustn't miss this, Jeffrey. My favorite author is Stefan Zweig, a remarkable Austrian author who tragically committed suicide when he thought Hitler was going to win the war. He only wrote 2 novels, but many brilliant non-fiction books and novellas. But I commend to you one of his books in particular, Chess. Well, it's a novel. It's a novella, really, and it will get you going. And then you will go on to his masterpiece, Beware of Pity. So yes, I read a book a week if I can, usually on recommendation. And my favorite author is Stefan Zweig.
What about the classics? What about those greats in English literature? Who's your absolute favorite and why?
Well, Shakespeare, of course, a genius. I'm going to King Lear for the 9th time, or at least my 9th King Lear next Thursday. I love the theatre and I love Shakespeare, who is the greatest writer and greatest storyteller of all time. Of the other classics, it's very simple to say you love Jane Austen, you love Charles Dickens, you love Emily Bronte. It's very easy to say, which is why I chose Stefan Zweig, because I wanted to stretch the people in the audience, knowing that every one of them will have already read the classics. I want them to start thinking about other authors.
Among your interests, you describe going to the theatre and also art collecting. You've done auctions for charity. Would you, I'm interested because of my own profession. I'd love you to talk about which particular artists, for example, do you follow artists? Do you collect certain artists? Or is there a moment in art history that you're particularly interested in? Would you like to introduce your art collection to this audience? talking about those things that you are passionate about, and perhaps will send people scurrying to look for those artists or those names or that period or that genre that interests you.
Over the years, I've collected the Impressionists, Monet, Manet, Picasso. I suppose Picasso isn't really an Impressionist. Pissarro. I've been a collector of the Impressionists. I buy a new painting with every book, so it's becoming a large collection, which my wife says don't buy any more because there are no walls left. I began 70 years ago. I purchased my first picture, which was a still life by a man called Davis, and I paid what would be the equivalent of $15 for it. So it was an early love affair, which has continued on and on. When I leave this talk, I'm going to the Art and Antiques Fair in Earl's Court, which is on once a year, to see what they're up to. I'm then having lunch with a distinguished art dealer in the centre of London. So it's been a long love affair and will continue. And all I would say to your audience is study, look, 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 make your eye better. And there are a lot of artists around who are still a reasonable price because there is a lot of talent around. And I'll tell you a thing I discovered, and hold your breath because I can see the audience. Women are cheap. They charge less for their paintings than stupid men. Stupid men think they're rather good and charge too much. Sensible women don't charge enough, in my view, and so my collection has a lot of women painters who are absolutely brilliant. Keep your eyes open, men. You're about to be defeated.
Every, you're a great storyteller, of course. You talked about the fact that when you're writing, you very often don't know how the book is going to end, and which I find extremely intriguing. That you don't know when you're spinning this yarn as to what will it arrive, what will be the ending. Are you a tease? Do you do this to yourself? Do you certainly do it to your audience, where you leave them guessing? I'm just wanting to know how that ending culminates. What are the things that you draw upon?
I never know the ending. I have a strong theory that if I know the ending, clever people will work it out and they will know the ending. Sometimes I don't get it until the last 10 pages. Sometimes I get it halfway through. But basically, I'm a storyteller. I turn the page and pray.
To a certain extent, we are told that writers do dwell upon autobiographical experience, and certainly you have talked about people that you know. So we know that you knew them and therefore they arrive in your books. But there must be other autobiographical details that enter your writing. Is that fair to assess that is the way it happens also with you? Do you delve into autobiographical aspects of your life?
Of course. And in fact, looking at your audience, I would say to them, you must write about what you know about and the people you've mixed and lived with, because then the reader will believe it. Don't write a ghost story because you think they're fashionable. Don't write a sex story because you think that's fashionable. Don't write a horror story or violence because you think that's fashionable. I have always written what I wanted to write, and I've been genuinely lucky and still being bought in numbers at my 50 years later. Very lucky indeed. And don't be frightened. If you look at some of the Indian and Pakistani authors, you will see how they have written about their country and what they experienced, something I would be incapable of doing. In fact, a lady came to me the other day to complain that I had met so many famous people and had such an amazing and privileged life. Of course, I could write a novel. So I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "I work in a hairdresser." And I said, "You'll get more stories in a hairdresser in 1 week than I'll get in a year."
So the next question is pretty obvious. Do you think you'll ever get down to writing your memoirs?
No, I've got the next 3 novels in mind. I know exactly where I'm going in theory, but you can't always decide your life more than a couple of days ahead. But no, I'm not interested in writing a biography.
There's a kind, I mean, I'm no literary critic, but there's a kind of cinematic quality to your writing, the way that, the scene changes, you describe settings, one feels a kind of camera zooming in to certain details. Has cinema influenced you? Do you enjoy going to the movies?
I
Or
think
watching them at home?
I think theatre has influenced me more. Yes, of course, I enjoy going to the cinema, and it was announced last week that Sony will be doing a remake of Cain and Abel, so that's rather exciting. And there's another company chasing hard on Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less. So I may, if I'm lucky, see a couple of films in the future. So yes, of course, I'm influenced by films, but I would say more by theatre.
You have talked about the fact that you're a writer of your time, places, locations, the events, and you yourself have said that you do. And last year you talked about certain ongoing events that you were witnessing. And as an observant person of your time, you must these days be observing certain things that are paramount, I think, in the thinking and worrying of people worldwide. Before our eyes, we see, if one is aware of it, the statistics yesterday afternoon were that a child was being killed every 10 minutes in Palestine. And that's since October the 7th. As a writer, will you be referring to these horrors of our time?
I think it unlikely because the William Warwick series is set in, well, the latest book is in 2002. So these terrible things that are happening in Israel and in Palestine I won't get there in time for that. And indeed, the new book, which I've been thinking over for years, is the story of a boy and a girl who were born on the first day of the Second World War, of the First World War, I'm so sorry, of the First World War, and takes them from 1918 through to 1942. So, no is the answer to your question.
There are writers who suffer from writer's block. And the speculation in today's world is that, well, the obvious thing would be to refer to AI. Do you ever contemplate the possibility of a writer as prolific as you are, with as rigorous a working schedule, would ever need to refer to artificial intelligence?
I hope not. It's very frightening. It's a whole new world, and your audience is going to live through it. And what comes out the other end will be absolutely fascinating. I'm horrified to learn the other day that if I went into my publishers and delivered one of my short stories, and I've written 92 short stories, if I delivered one of my short stories, I read it, they could have all 26 novels with me reading as if I had read the 26 novels. And worse, if you can believe it, they'll then have me reading in French, German, Italian, and I can't read a word of French, German, or Italian. So where it's going to go, I don't know. But I want to doubt that genuine originality is not possible in a robot. I like to believe the opening line of Cain and Abel. She only stopped screaming when she died. It was then that he started to scream. I'd like to believe a robot couldn't do that.
A very heartwarming aspect of your conversation last year was the way that you address especially the women, the young women in our audience. I would like you again, because this is a fresh batch of young women.
They're all
Would you like to talk to them about the world that they are going to inherit?
What? You're just as bad, by the way. You're all frightening, and you will overtake the world. What we haven't worked out, and I spotted it among young Pakistanis and young Indians, the next generation is going to be run by women. They're not only every bit as bright, if not brighter, they work so much harder. Men won't have a chance in the next century. God help them.
I think that we perhaps should then hand over to some of these young women.
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask my co-host to ask some of her own questions and then put some of them to the audience.
And if I could thank you for your excellent questions. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salima Hashmi, for asking such intriguing questions, and to Mr. Archer for such witty responses and for keeping us engaged in this entire conversation. If the audience has any questions for Mr. Archer, kindly note them on the flashcards available with the ushers. Now, I would like to ask some questions for Mr. Archer before we conclude this interview. If you could co-author a book with any living author, who would it be, and what type of story do you envision creating together?
Any living author is trickier for me than any dead author. I can think of a dozen dead authors I'd like to meet and talk to them and find out how their brains worked and what their routines were. Modern authors don't excite me as much as those of the past. But of course, I would be fascinated to meet. I've recently had lunch with David Williams because I wanted to talk to him about the difference between writing a children's book and writing a novel. So he was fascinating. And indeed, Giles Brandreth and Anthony Horowitz and Freddie Forsyth are all friends. So I'm able to talk to them about their work, and I hope learn from it.
Brilliant response indeed. Your work often features a dynamic duo. Do you think that having a close companion in real life has a significant impact on your outlook of life?
Well, I've been married to a very remarkable woman for 57 years. She was chairman at Cambridge University Hospital. The Queen made her a dame. She's now Dame Mary. She's then went on and it still is chairman of the Science Museum in Great Britain, the first woman ever to chair a national gallery or museum in this country. So I've lived with a remarkable woman for 57 years. I worked with a remarkable woman called Margaret Thatcher for 11 years, and we remained friends after she stopped being Prime Minister. And my mother was a young councillor in her hometown when it wasn't fashionable for a woman to be doing politics. So strong women have dominated my life, and you're quite right. They dominate my books.
Incredibly inspiring. Have you ever thought about completely changing the genre of your books? If yes, what would that story consist of?
What are you suggesting? No, I'm happy, thank you. You go off and write your own books.
We must say we are very happy with your style of books as well.
Well,
If you happen to
you
meet,
mustn't.
Sure,
You
please go
mustn't.
ahead.
Sorry, you mustn't. You mustn't try to do something you don't feel at ease with. You must do your thing and pray the public will enjoy it. Where I've been particularly lucky is to hold on to generation after generation, and so that when you're going 50 years later, they're still out there, a totally new generation. That's been my greatest privilege.
Indeed. If you happen to meet one of the characters from your books, what are the questions you would like to pose to them, and how would you feel meeting them?
Well, I'm having written 26 books. There are so many characters, not least, of course, Cain and Abel, which has now been read by 100 million people. So it's quite difficult to pick one, to be honest.
No doubt, no doubt. How have you beautifully managed to sustain the element of intrigue and involvement, not only for the older generation, but also for the younger minds?
Do you know, I think that's again luck. I think I can't put a finger on it. I think it surprises me as much as anyone that 14-year-olds come up to me in the road and say they read my books, as well as 90-year-olds. So it's very flattering that one goes from one end of the spectrum to the other, and that 60% of my readers are women. And no, I can't explain it. I'm frightened of even wanting to explain it, because I think I must just go on doing what I do and pray.
Thank you, sir. Let's take some questions from the audience. What do you think is the most common misconception about being a writer?
The most common misconception,
Yes.
I think the most common misconception is that it's easy. I take 1,000 hours to write a book, and I always say to young people, I'd love to be a ballet dancer. I'd love to be a violinist. I'd love to be an opera singer. And every one of you in the audience knows how hard and how difficult it is to reach the top of that profession, and how much talent you need to reach the top of that profession. It's no different if you want to be a writer.
What an highly accurate response. If you were to produce a movie based on one of your books, which one would it be and why?
Well, Cain and Abel has already been made into a miniseries. Not a Penny More was made into a film. First Among Equals was made into film. Sony have just repurchased Cain and Abel. But I think the answer is I would like Paths of Glory to be made into a film. The story of Mallory conquering Everest in 1924. Did he or didn't he conquer Everest? His body was found 700 foot from the top. Was he on the way down or was he on the way up? I've had several offers for that film, but it's never come to fruition. So I think Paths of Glory would be the one I'd most like to see made. And I have to point out that in India, not in Pakistan, in India, they stole Cain and Abel. They're a bunch of thieves. They stole Cain and Abel, made it on Bollywood, and didn't pay me one penny. They changed the title and didn't pay me one penny.
I just finished reading Paths of Glory, so I would definitely love to see a movie based on that. How do you develop your characters and plot lines? Do you meticulously plan them or allow them to evolve naturally during the writing process?
I think the latter is the case. I think they evolve naturally. You see them growing up, doing things that you did when you were young, when you were middle-aged, when you first had children, when you first had grandchildren. And if you can express it on the page, sometimes in a simple sentence, the reader will do what the great editor Corley Smith called nod. If someone nods when they're reading a book, you've hit a theme, you've hit a note that they associate with. And every writer is trying to achieve that. It's to make a reader not only turn the page, which is vital, but to nod and say, yes, I'm with you on this one, Jeffrey.
Self doubt can be often challenging for authors. How do you navigate such an obstacle and maintain creative momentum?
How do I manage? I'm deaf, I apologize. How do I manage
Self doubt as an obstacle.
hindsight? Did you say hindsight?
I don't understand.
Sorry.
Can you repeat that, please? All right, I'll repeat the entire question. Self doubt can be challenging for authors. How do you navigate such an obstacle and maintain creative momentum?
Oh, well, I'll be absolutely honest with you. It's never been a problem. I know the next three books. I've so many people I hear say, oh, I've got writer's block or I don't know what to do next. I really feel for them because I always know what I want to do next. I never want to stop. As I said, the 14th draft of the new book is sitting in the next room, and I can't wait to get back to it. I love writing. It's a great privilege. By the way, you people who want to be writers out there, if you don't love it, forget it.
Thank you, sir, for your creative and captivating responses. On behalf of Beaconhouse, I thank Mr. Jeffrey Archer and Ms. Salima Hashmi, along with our audience, for participating in SOT 16, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. Please share your feedback regarding an email you will receive from the SOT team. Thank you to our panelists and our audience. We would also like to thank the sponsors, especially Google for Education, for helping to make this event possible. All
And can
right.
I thank you as well? Hello. Can I thank you as well? Always love coming on these shows and
Of
listening
course, sir.
to
Thank
the
you.
views of the young. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, if you do not mind, we have just received some more questions from the audience. Would you be willing to answer them?
For a few moments, yes.
Great. So the first question is, can every great storyteller be a writer?
They're not the same thing. It's a very good question. I am a storyteller. Writers are well educated, well read people who write, but storytelling is a gift. If you can combine both writing and storytelling, then you hit the jackpot. But I'm afraid storytelling is a gift.
Indeed, it is. How did you develop an interest for writing books?
By mistake, I was a member of parliament, wanted to be prime minister, was charging on my way in the House of Commons at the age of 29, thought I was certain to be prime minister by the age of 34, when I foolishly invested in a disastrous company and lost all my money and was facing bankruptcy and had to leave the House of Commons. I turned to writing by mistake at the age of 34. Remember, Proust said, we all end up doing the thing we're second best at.
Some of your best work is behind bars. How did you feel about writing in that particular space?
Well, it meant an earlier question by your brilliant host at the beginning. It's when you are privileged to meet fascinating and different people than you would normally meet. Every writer needs experiences and needs to meet people.
Can you tell us about your writing process? How do you start?
No, I already have. You clearly weren't listening at the beginning of this program. Go home, wicked one. Pay attention. All the others in the audience were paying attention. They'll tell you the answer to that one. Wake up!
Right, I think the audience should start paying more attention. Do you think of ChatGPT where people can produce work from an ASI bot? Sorry, AI bot.
We've done the AI question.
Indeed, we have already asked you this question. Any more insight you would like to provide?
No, I'd like to say, when you leave, work hard. You will not reach anything in life without hard work. Here is my final comment. Are you listening carefully? If you have talent and what? Hey, wait. Listen carefully. If you have talent and energy, you will be a king. If you have energy but no talent, you'll still be a prince. But if you have talent and no energy, you will be a pauper. Goodbye.
All right, we have another question from the audience.
Oops, we ran out of time.
I'm going back to work. Bye.